You're listening to the Hella Well with Danielle show, a podcast taking women of color on a journey exploring all things wellness and travel related. We're all about showing you how to put on your oxygen mask first and creating lasting self-care habits that will free you to travel the world and live the life you truly desire, and not one you have to fake loving. I'm your host, Danielle Washington. Now let's buckle up and start this journey. I was going to wear my new shirt that says, yoga is my therapy.
Is yoga your therapy?
Yoga is my therapy. It's funny because I actually have a book that says travel is my therapy that's on
Mm.
Amazon, which travel is my therapy, but yoga 100% is my therapy and why I decided to become a yoga therapist. In a yoga session, like you do privates with people, you can help people like with their correct postures and like kind of where they're moving. A yoga therapy session, you're working with someone based off of what's going on in their life and helping
Mhm.
them go through the alleviate those things. And it goes on a deeper level because it's more than just, are you doing the posture right? Is this helping you to get to your desired goal? Because people have certain goals
Yeah.
that we work with.
Yeah. No, it makes sense, especially now that we've talked about it for in such detail. But I didn't really know that video you sent me the other day or last week or whatever.
Mhm.
Okay, I get that this is therapy, but what does that
Right.
actually mean?
But and that's the point. What does it
Yeah.
actually mean? Because a lot of people are like, well, yoga's therapeutic. Why do I need to be a yoga therapist versus a yoga teacher?
Hmm.
And that's why I was like, I wanted to make sure people understood that all yoga is therapeutic, but in a yoga class, one person may be going through one thing versus another thing, and or you may be going to one thing at one point in your life, and a different point in your life, it's something different. A yoga class can't always meet those needs because it's not meant to
Hmm.
meet those needs.
No. And like you need more. And it's not like this is bad. It's not like it's not, you know, working for you to a degree. It's just,
It's just different. It's just going on a different level.
yeah.
And that's why I was saying before, it's like if someone just has stress, they can go to a yoga teacher, they can go to a yoga therapist. But if your doctor, chiropractor, or physical therapist said you should try yoga, or you have certain conditions that you're trying to work through yoga, I would recommend seeing a yoga therapist.
And I love that we started talking about this when you were like really in the thick of it. And you were just so, and not saying you're not, right? But you were just so driven at that point. Like you were like, yes, I'm so deep into it. And now you're like, so I completed a case study and this is the thing. And
But I love that you can see the difference because not even low key, when I first started doing this, there was so much imposter syndrome. 2 years later into this process, I'm like, oh yeah, I love, like, I geek out totally. So yeah, I feel like, yeah, case study, working on a bunch of different things, different ball game.
So, for those of us who have not been studying this for the last few years, can you give a little bit of detail what yoga therapy is and how it does differ from just regular yoga classes?
Yeah, definitely. So yoga therapy, the way I like to describe it, it's a specific application of yoga tools. So like we use postures, exercise, breath work, meditation, but it's used to address individual physical, mental, and emotional needs. So as a yoga class, someone's going in there just to take yoga, learn how to move the postures, rather than focusing on someone's individual situation. What we do as therapists is we help empower our students and our clients to really take an active role in their self-care.
Mm. Okay, so can you walk us through like a typical yoga therapy session? Is it session?
No,
How
it
do
is a session. So the major two differences between a yoga class and a yoga therapy session is, we'll call it the intent. We'll start with the intent. The intent of a yoga class is to teach students how to practice yoga while respecting the health conditions. So like you, if someone says, I'm pregnant, you're like, okay, don't do this. Whereas a yoga therapist will take an intake and assessment prior to working with someone. So we have a whole, like, I have like, they start with telling us to do like at least 10 questions. My intake process is 2 hours because we're looking at the person as a holistic situation. So you're getting to understand what symptoms that they're experiencing, what is troubling them. So then you can identify and help them manage those symptoms.
Okay. And so what are some of the most common reasons or conditions that people have to seek yoga therapy?
You name it, it's everything. I'll be the first one to say yoga therapy is not a cure. It does not replace, medical attention. Yoga therapy is like a complement to medical treatment. So you can see someone like there's been research of how yoga therapy has helped people with cancer, with addictions, with burnout,
Mm.
with other like anxiety, with stress, with chronic illnesses, chronic pain. Like there's so many ways it can be utilized. And they've been doing a lot of research to show how it's been working. But like I like to think about it, like when should you go to a yoga therapist and when should you go to a doctor? I mean, excuse me, when should you go to a yoga therapist and when should you go to a yoga teacher? So if your doctor says, or your chiropractor says, or physical therapist says, you should go to yoga for XYZ, that's when you go to a yoga therapist. But someone saying, "Oh, I just want to, increase my, flexibility," yoga teacher. If I'm looking to work out and do something because I have a certain condition or back pain or, whatever's going on, that's when I would tell someone to go to a yoga therapist versus I just want to decrease stress level. You can go to either or. So there's different reasons why you would want to go to one versus the other, but specifically a yoga therapist is going to help you on your own things.
It sounds like depth, like really that the level of depth is just higher, right? Am I kind of
Yeah.
taking
No,
that
I
right?
think it's definitely the depth because yoga in general is therapeutic. It's healing. So I'm not saying yoga teachers aren't helping and there isn't any therapeutic value behind a yoga class. There is. It's just a different level. The thing is with yoga therapy and a teacher, yoga class is that a yoga teacher and a student going to a yoga class may feel one thing one way and feel another thing another. A class can maybe work for one person and it's not working therapeutically for another. So it doesn't often match what's going on with that individual situation. Whereas yoga therapy, even if it's in a group session, is specifically tailored to work on specific situations.
Okay. And so how would you say that yoga therapy incorporates the elements that are just beyond those physical postures, since it is more in depth, right? The breath work, meditation, lifestyle things.
Yeah, definitely. So for me, I think there are different teachings of yoga therapy. So, like, I'm going to a yoga therapist conference coming up soon, and a lot of the yoga therapists are trained in hatha, or maybe one's trained in yin, one's trained in kundalini, and we all have our different trainings. Where I was taught yoga therapy, we really demystified kundalini yoga. So, kundalini yoga, we have different kriyas, which are kind of a set of postures that are created to work on specific things. So there may be a kriya for stress, there may be a kriya for inner anger. What I love, and this is where I totally geek out, we actually will look at the collection of postures and be like, okay, this is working on the liver meridian, or this is working on XYZ, and this works on the, thymus gland, which will help with this. And so we're able to really pinpoint, take apart things and utilize it for medicinal purposes. But on top of that, we are also trained in, have a foundation in Chinese traditional medicine, Ayurveda, energetic work, and all different types of things. And it talks about really utilizing everything that you have. So I have a background in yogic astrology. I have a background in numerology. I have a background in Reiki, in, alchemy. And so it's literally putting in all these different pieces and be like, okay, you have someone comes to me with X. I can look at it from different perspectives to get the answer.
Right, and view them as a whole. And I think that that's
Yeah.
kind of a complaint that we have about our medical system currently, right? Like going to doctors, especially like as a Black woman, like the doctor is one of the most dangerous places for us to be, the doctor or the hospital, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So, you know, like having a different approach, really just seems like it makes a lot of sense. So, can you explain the certification or training process? Is this a degree? Is this a license? How does this work?
It's a certification program. There's various hours, but you have to obviously have a yoga teacher training prior to that. You have to
Mm,
be teaching for a certain amount of time. There's clinical hours that you have to have. Like right now, I'm in the process of finishing my clinical hours. We go through 200 hours of anatomy. So, like, I had anatomy in my teacher training, and I'm sure you did too. And I'm like, oh, this is gonna be easy. It's gonna be like the same thing. I'm like, 200 hours of anatomy, that was a lot. That was intense. That was intense. I didn't even think I was going to pass that test. So there's a test after everything that we do. So you're tested on everything. You have clinical supervision that you go through. There is a set requirement if you are being in a school that is certified by the association. So there's the International Association for Yoga Therapists. And so there's different things you have to do. There's all these different hours, and then you have to get recertified every 3 years. So
mm,
this is not just I went on an online course and boop, I've finished it and completed and I'm now a yoga therapist, which I'm not knocking. We've all been through there. We've all been through certain programs like that and got certifications. This is just it feels like a graduate degree, in all
mm.
honesty. My niece has been going through her graduate degree of getting a, degree in clinical psychology. And like we talk about certain things, I'm like, girl, I'm doing the same thing you're doing. I'm like, this is so interesting.
Yeah, no, and it seems like very, like I said, in depth, like the depth of this on
Yeah.
your end, on the client's end, all of that just seems you know, like a next, no, I wouldn't even necessarily say next step. It's just whether it's the right step for somebody or not. So, um, in your experience or from, you know, the things that you've learned thus far, do you feel like there are certain populations or individuals that would benefit more from this or need to take certain precautions going into receiving yoga therapy?
No, because the thing about yoga therapy is, and that's what makes it different from yoga teachings, is that we can work with people who can't move. Like you
Mm,
don't have to, like I was looking at something about, I'm going to this conference, they're talking about working with people who are disabled. And then, there's another one talking about working with the population that are incarcerated. So there's not a population that this doesn't work with. I feel my personal belief, I want our people to be a part of this and to get this because we're so driven towards Western medicine because that's all we know. And Western medicine don't care about us. They
fails us
don't.
regularly.
I mean, we are misdiagnosed because they think, oh, we're just overacting or all these different things. They don't take into account that the African American population has its own unique situations that have gone on medically that they disregard, especially like Black women get fibroids more so than anyone else.
Mm,
And so for me, I find this to be a more holistic way to work through some of the things and to have someone who is an advocate for you. Being a yoga therapist, you're working with people on a one-on-one basis most of the time, and you're customizing it with what's going on in their lives. And it's not the 20 minutes that Kaiser gives you. You're like, and your time's up. Okay, next person. Like my sessions go for like hours.
and so what research comes along with this? What backs up the effects of yoga therapy?
So there's been a lot of research done from the use of yoga therapy with cancer, burnout, and all these different things. There's always constant research going on. Like there's different symposiums that happen. I haven't been to symposium, but I've read some of the research, but it backs it up. I mean, like even look at Kirtan Kriya, which is this specific meditation in Kundalini Yoga that does Satanama. That's been scientifically proven to help people with dementia, Alzheimer's, and people with any mental kind of things that are kind of brain fog. The research is out there. And you're also seeing medical physicians and medical communities welcoming yoga therapy more and more and more. So it's in the hospitals. We follow certain protocols that match that. Like the difference also with a yoga therapist versus a yoga teacher is that we can talk to medical professionals. Like someone could have us be referred by a doctor, or we can refer someone to a doctor, and we can talk to a doctor about our client's situation. So it's like, we, again, there's that connection and it does go on a different level.
How closely would you say, or if you know that, would you say that yoga therapy relates to like regular mental health therapy and therapists that we think of when we hear the word therapy?
Yeah, I mean, I think it complements it, but it doesn't replace it. I want to make sure I clearly say it, like we don't diagnose people. I can't, unless I have a medical training in, clinical psychology, I'm not diagnosing someone. I'm giving them a therapeutic plan to help, you know, improve their wellness and, according to what is our framework. So I think it works well together. Do we work on things if someone has, an addiction or trauma? Yes, we can help, but it doesn't replace it.
Right. But I asked that question because I know for myself, right, having conversations with people, like even with my coaching with other people who are certified coaches, and my friends who are therapists, we talk about kind of the limitations there sometimes,
Yeah.
that come with that, like you said, like that psychology degree and that certification versus these other spaces and ways and touch points that we can get connected to our clients. And I feel like the delineation of what is also very unclear on our end as far as people of color in this country,
Yeah.
right? We don't receive proper care, like you said, according to like Western medicine. So that makes it harder for us to accept, which I think should make it honestly easier for a person of color or a person that grew up under this mindset, because it's also common in other like other basically other people of color, like not just black people, right?
Yeah.
If my friend, her parents are from El Salvador, her grandmother will not go to a doctor for nobody's business, okay? But but will she go to the medicine woman? Yes. Will she listen to this person? Yes. Right. So, and so there are plenty of other things like that which I totally agree with. So I'm just putting in my 2 cents, I guess, on it, that I feel like this is a moment of connection for people of color, for Black people interested in yoga and looking for the connection of healing and the depth in yoga in a very intense, or and not necessarily intense because you'll make it make sense,
Yeah.
but in depth kind of way, in a way that like we don't tend to be comfortable with going to a doctor, talking to a doctor, getting solutions and medicine and stuff from a doctor.
Yeah, but I also think that there's some barriers, I'd like to say, with it being the fact that it says yoga.
Mm,
Because I mean, that's part of why we started this whole podcast. People are like, oh, well, I don't do yoga, so this can't work for me.
yeah.
Like, why would I mean, I'll do regular therapy, but I won't do yoga therapy because that can't work. Like, breath can't help me, or maybe changing how I view certain things or my diet and all these different things couldn't work, possibly. Well, acupressure, like, why would me pointing something in my body would help me with anything? So I
Right.
think that there's that barrier because I do feel, in my opinion, the way I've been trained as a yoga therapist, it feels closer to a medicine woman.
Mm,
It feels closer to what our ancestors practice. Seeing someone, especially in Chinese medicine, it was interesting because we were reading this book called The Web Has No Weaver. Horrible book in terms of it being so dense that you're like, oh my God, I have to reread this paragraph several times just to make sure I understand it. But great in terms of knowledge. But they
okay.
talk about it in traditional Chinese medicine is that Western medicine looks at like the stress or the whatever the thing is versus looking at the whole person.
Hmm.
Like we can say, oh, I have a cough. Well, they're not looking at the cough. They're looking at, oh, do you have dampness in the body? Is there heat? Is there different things going on? Is there a meridian blocked? And so learning from that perspective to look at the person and not look at the symptoms, I feel like benefits us in such a beautiful way that we're not getting at most hospitals and doctors.
Right. And you know what? And I think that in that moment, I want everybody listening to really hear what I'm saying, because we do this all the time. We ignore
Hmm.
the fact that we need specialized attention. Right. And it's so weird to me, especially because when I have coaching sessions with people, I'm talking to people about like, okay, so if this never worked for you, why do you think doing it harder is going to be the thing that works for you?
Right.
Versus saying, oh, this never worked for me. I should make a left and I should go find something different. I should hear it differently. I should have somebody speak to me differently and get information that comes from different type of research or something that could actually support me.
Mhm.
You know, and so I feel like it's important to see like this is a moment for myself. This is a moment that I know that I'm having a problem and I need to be seen fully in order to do something about this problem. So I really think that that's an amazing step, especially because it is so holistic
Mhm.
that like I take this step and I have this whole session with you and we do the intake and the research and y'all, she just told me about this 17-page something that she just made. And I was like, oh, that's a lot of detail.
And it is, but I think it's needed. So we create a therapeutic plan. Again, we don't diagnose people, it's not a cure, but we create a therapeutic plan. And in that plan, I go over my, after meeting with them for 2 hours, like I want to get it under 2 hours, but I have so many questions. And you ask one question, it's like takes you down a different path and takes you down a different path. Someone says this, you're like, oh, well, what that leads to that, and that leads to this, and this to that. So I feel like the intake process is so important, which is why I really like to be thorough about that. But once
Mhm.
I do that, I kind of go back, look at everything that's said, and then create this plan that says, okay, here are the different steps of things that I feel like will work with you. And I don't give them everything because the thing with the yoga therapy, and I think of any kind of one-on-one session, is like you want someone to feel like they can have that win. So you give
Mhm.
them bite-sizable things that they can start off with because we're not just meeting with them one and done. You don't walk a dog once and think that it's like you never have to do it again. And
Right.
I think that's the same thing with this practice. And so it includes, the different asanas, it includes breath work, it includes all these different things. But because I'm also trained in yoga astrology, I'll connect, okay, here's what your chart is saying. Here are different ways that you can utilize yoga. You can use crystals, you can utilize oils to help you in a different way. What your yogic numerology says, okay, your soul number is showing up as this is what's going on. It's so interesting when people start listening about their like yogic astrology and yogic and numerology. They're like, oh, wow. Like, how did you know all this stuff? Like, what is it working with? Then I also look at human design, which is a whole other factor. And so when you put all the different pieces together, A, you start seeing commonalities. B, you start seeing major themes. They're like, oh, this is the root of what's going on.
And not only the root, one thing that stood out to me in what you just said, especially using like astrology as far as a timeline, sometimes it's not the right time for you to try to heal Z, but X and Y right now is the moment, right? And so to know that and to be able to access that, because let me tell you how Danielle be putting on my face. Look, they're just telling y'all, Danielle be putting me on my face. Like I'll just be like, oh, I don't know what's going on with this. Well, the moon is in and then I'm like, oh, okay, so I should wait for this. Okay, all right. And like that's real. And I think something that we as a people have disconnected from by force, right? It was forced on us to disconnect from our heritage, from those historical
Mm-hmm.
teachings, from the natural homeopathic and astrological, all those things that we believed in from our homes and our roots and stuff that was completely stolen from us and separated from us. We were severed from that space. So we don't get to believe in it. And we're taught like it's like voodoo, hoodoo, which voodoo and hoodoo are different things that we both respect in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
But we're taught
So
that that's bad.
Right, but we're taught that it's bad. We're taught that it's evil. And then this, was one of the first conversations we had, like taught that yoga is evil and that we can't, we shouldn't be doing these practices and that it's bad for us. And we're calling on demons. How many people told me I was calling on demons? All right, well, these demons treat me better than the church ever did. So,
Well, the demons are all in politics. Oh, did I say that loud?
oh, sorry, we're just having a moment, y'all.
We had a moment.
You know,
I mean, they're
but
out
it's
there
real.
making policy about your body. They're out there making policy about your well-being. Those are the demons. They're out there molesting your kids in the churches. I'm like, let's call it. They're out there having affairs. Demons are everywhere.
So I don't tend to have the demons here with me on my yoga mat, but at least if I'm exercising them, I'm letting them out.
Yeah.
That's still a thing. Um
What I think a lot of people don't realize is that the body holds so much information. It holds
mhm.
so much emotion in us. And so, like, I was talking to my niece the other day. She's like, "Oh my God, did you know that you had whole trauma in your hips?" And I'm like, "Girl, yes." I go, "That's why people do butterfly to help them work on releasing some of that trauma. That's what we do shaking. There's so many different ways our body is talking to us and saying, help, help, help. But we don't listen because we're not trained to listen.
Yeah, and we're not trained. We were so actively divided from that sense of like natural
Hmm.
that centrality, right? Like whatever ties you to yourself and keeps you what we call in yoga aligned, right?
Hmm.
So if we're totally severed from the space of that alignment. So like this is why we fight for it. This is why we do it. This is why we work for it to get closer to that space, to get back to that space, to get somewhere near it. And so we can operate in our most aligned selves, in ourselves that make the most sense specifically for us.
Yeah.
And that's a hard space to find, especially if you don't speak to somebody that is trained in all these things. Like, because no matter I'm not, no matter how many conversations that you have about it, if you're not as trained in it and it's not the same level of depth, you can't just know, right? You can't just know what to do and where to go and whatever. But that's why there are people that are trained in this and certified and need to get updated in that certification. And I think that's really important, right? Like staying up on your training, staying up on that info, that again keeps you able to talk to the doctor, talk to somebody who has that medical training. I can't talk to somebody with medical training about but so much, right? I can do
Yeah.
some of the physical stuff, but that's not the level of training that I have, and that's not my job, right? But looking at a person as a whole, I have a certain level of it. And to go to this yoga therapy level, you have elevated the depth there and the ability that, and scary, your accountability, but
Yeah. Because
you've been
people
able
don't
to
like
carve some
accountability.
space.
But that's a
Yeah.
good point you bring up. That's what I also feel like there is a major difference in yoga therapists versus other type of people out there is that there's that accountability. I don't think people want the accountability. They need the accountability, but they don't want the accountability.
Yeah, because I mean it's so many things that you've taken into consideration that you're absolutely right. The next step that you told me I should take.
Yeah.
And you were pretty reasonable about your expectations. And now I'm just like, oh dang, now I gotta do all of that. I That's scary. And making change and changing your life and shifting things is also scary. But that is the point of going to a trained professional, going to somebody who is
Yeah.
knowledgeable and prepared to guide you through this properly.
And this is all about helping people be empowered to take care of themselves. It's not for me to say, do all this and I'm going to do all this stuff for you and then you're going to be healed. This is helping people take control, take back control of their lives. Be the one in the driver's seat versus some doctor who isn't with you and it only gives you 10 minutes to say what you have. And oh my God, I forgot to tell them this. And they've done this whole prescription, all these things based off the 10 minutes that you said, which didn't imply that you had this other thing happened, and that's going on. And so they're not looking at you as a whole person. Goes
Right.
back to that whole person situation. I just want people to be free.
Trying to unleash some chains up in here.
I think we are so blocked energetically. We are so blocked physically, mentally, spiritually in so many different ways that we don't even realize it.
Right. We can't see it. We're standing in between the trees looking for the forest. So,
I just feel myself as I'm the light. I'm like that movie theater person with the light, and here's the seat, and I'm helping people find their direction through these different practices. And that feels like that's my purpose. Like I wanted to be a life coach. I tried. I did the classes. I was like, this don't feel right. This don't feel right. And when I got to this point of my life and my path, I was like, oh, yeah, it's right here. And this is just one part of it. I know I'm going deeper.
mhm.
I'm connecting on a different level that I ever imagined I would because I feel like this is what our people need.
Yeah, and I love that. So if you feel like you are in need of a yoga therapist, how can somebody find a qualified and experienced yoga therapist in their area? Are there any like professional organizations to look into or anything like
Yeah.
that?
So there's the International Association of Yoga Therapists, where on that site you can look up yoga therapists in your neighborhood. You can look at their accreditation. You can look at, what school they might have went to. And so if they're part of that association, that shows that, they've done X amount of hours of training. Um, yeah, that's how I would look for someone.
Okay. And if someone is looking for you to work with you as a yoga therapy client, are they able to do that yet? Are you done with your hours? How does that work?
So I am done with all the training now. I'm just doing clinical supervision hours. And so just like as someone who is like, for example, I was talking about my niece. My niece just graduated from Georgia State University. She has her degree, but she still has to finish all of her clinical hours. I'm finishing all my clinical hours. And so I'm seeing clients right now. I have actually two clients I'm seeing today. So, yes, people can reach out to me. I would tell them to reach out to me going to the website hellowellwithdanielle.com, or you can reach out to me on Instagram and we can set up a consultation program versus and then see if it's a right fit to do an intake and kind of go through the process. Because it's not just, as I was saying before, it's not just a one and done. It's not like I do an intake, I tell you what to do, give you the paperwork, and like, deuces, I'm out. This is a longer conversation. This is a longer relationships because I'm not doing the work by myself. We're working together as a collaboration. Be like, okay, try this. Let's see how this worked. Oh, this worked, that didn't work. Okay, let's pivot here. Oh, something else came in. Okay, let's work on this. And so it's a long-term relationship. It doesn't be like for years, but it's definitely several follow-up sessions to make sure that we're on the right track and so you are empowered to take care of yourself. I'm not empowering people. I'm just giving them the light to empower themselves.
And in that vein, I am also, I think this is the last question that I have, but how would you know that you should go into yoga therapy? Is this a career path that this is calling me, but I don't know this is the call because I haven't heard it before?
Yeah, that's a great question because I hadn't heard of it. I was in yoga teacher training thinking like, oh my God, I could use this way, that way. Like, okay, I want to help Black women with this. And, if I use this Kriya with this meditation and this breath work and this mudra, it will help them get to this situation. And that's how I was seeing Kundalini yoga. That's the huge reason why I love Kundalini yoga versus other yogas, because like I could see how it can benefit people immediately through the different things that we do. And then my teacher was talking about yoga therapy. I'm like, what is this yoga therapy thing you talk of? It sounds exactly how I see using yoga. So I feel like if you are looking to help people on a one-on-one situation, I think a lot of people who are doing private sessions and want to kind of help people that are not just healthy, because the premise of a yoga class or yoga teacher is like we're working with people who are healthy. the premise of a yoga therapist was working with people who have something going on that they want to make a shift in their lives. And if you want to make a deeper shift in people's lives, I think yoga therapy is just something to consider.
Okay, and I love that information. Thank you so much for enlightening me and us all about what yoga therapy is and how it works. Hopefully, the Black people hear it. That's all. That's
I need them. I need our people to hear this. I need our people to become aware of yoga therapy just because I feel like Western medicine has failed us in so many different ways. I'm not saying it doesn't work because that's why I have insurance. I'm not saying there's not a reason for it. That's why I
right.
have insurance. But I'm saying that there's other ways that we can work holistically on healing our body. Like the
Mhm.
other day, I was going through some stuff and I had a headache, my neck was hurting, and different things. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to just use some acupressure points. And I won't lie, part of me is still skeptical. I'm like, I need to look for my medication. Where's my migraine medication? It's like, no, 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 no. You have the
Right.
skills. Let's just do it. And I'm like, oh my God, this works. And so I sometimes even surprise myself. I'm like, because I'm so trained. That's the thing. We're so trained to go to the Western side of things that even when I have the skill set, I'm like, no, no, I'm not going to use that. So I have to like continuously rewire my brain to say, like, no, sis, you are empowered to take care of yourself. So why
Yeah.
don't you use those things that are there for you? And if they don't work, then go to the complements of whatever else is going on Western medicine can give you.
I'd love for you to let us know what you have coming up. Is there any ways to connect with you soon?
Yeah, so again, I'm taking on clients right now and I'm working with different people. I have a couple more spaces open. I don't have a ton more spaces because again, I want it to feel personalized and really give people my all. But what I am doing is in November, I am creating a small, intense yoga therapy weekend. So we'll work prior to on some stuff, but I really want people to come together and like on a deeper level work through everything that they're working through. And so in November is when I will be doing that, and more information will coming up soon on that retreat. So it'll be like a weekend retreat in California, most likely.
Okay. Sounds good. All right. And if you have more questions, if anybody listening wants to know more or has some confusion about something, please leave your comments and your questions down below. And the links to get to Danielle's website and everything else is down below as well. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for joining us this week on the Hello Well with Danielle show. Make sure to visit our website, hellowellwithdanielle.com, where you can subscribe to our show on iTunes, Spotify, and Amazon Music and never miss an episode. Also, you can follow us on social media at Hello Well with Danielle on Facebook and Instagram, and Hello Well Danny on Twitter. And if you like hella love the show and got some good nuggets out of it, know that I'm not too proud to ask for you to please leave a rating or review on iTunes so that we can continue to expand our reach and help other women of color. Again, thanks so much for listening, and I hope to see you next week. Ciao.